Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Beth McDaniel. Her legal practice is focused on contracts, business administration, innovation, and entrepreneurship. As a serial entrepreneur, she has guided this bleeding-edge innovation company operating in the paint and coatings and specialty chemicals industry for the past 15 years. She has served in leadership roles for numerous organizations, including serving as a Pathways to Peace Fellow, a premier social justice organization. Her work in the area of human rights and social justice brings a level of experience and intention to ensure that any climate solution has at its heart environmental justice and enhancement of human rights and personal livelihood. Welcome, Beth, to the A Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you for having me, Lino. It's great to be here.
So, wow, this is a load of information, and people that are tuning in for the first time, I've never had a topic like this before. So I'm really excited about this. Thank you so much for your time and for educating the world on this. This is an incredible topic here. So, yeah, I guess, where would you like to start? Would you like to tell us about your journey to what got you to where you're at today with such an incredible passion that you have?
Well, it wasn't an incredible passion that I had all my life. I mean, I guess there's been turning points in my life where my passion has driven me in different directions, but I was not the person that invented this technology. And I will say that my husband, Steve McDaniel, he's a biochemist and he's a patent attorney and he's an innovator in his heart and in his mind. I happened to marry him. Okay. That's something that I did. And that's how I got involved in the technology that we're involved in. Now, I had a whole life before that and lots of fits and starts. And, when you get to be in your 50s, you just have this world of experience behind you, that all adds up to something valuable if you can kind of put it all together. So that's where we are right now. And we have an innovation company in the paint and coatings industry, which I always say is the biggest industry that no one's really ever thought about. It's prolific. Coatings are ubiquitous in your environment. They're all around you. If you just look around wherever you are, everything that you see, the walls, obviously, and the ceilings have coatings on them. They're paints. Paints and coatings are kind of synonymous. A paint is a coating with a color. And a coating is something that's just there to protect surface. And those are two of the aspects of paints that we all know. Yes. We want to protect surfaces and we want to decorate with, hummingbird blue or something like that. Yeah. What our company does is we add functionality to paints and coatings, and we ask those coatings to respond to their environment in some way. And so we've developed, and what we do is we grab from nature certain kinds of biomolecules that have a functionality already and put them into a coating system and ask that coating system to do what it does in nature, but on a surface. And then we can functionalize surfaces because when it dries, it's still doing that. So I know that's a lot to take in. Again, most people have not really ever thought about paints and coatings more, even more so about innovating in that space. We've been doing it for about 20 years in a company called Reactive Surfaces.
And you just said something about doing, basically, I guess, kind of having the coating or the paint or the coating to mimic what it does in nature. What do you mean by that?
Well, okay, for instance, there are enzymes in nature called lipases. And what they do in nature is they break down greases, like natural oils and greases and fats. And so we entrained that enzyme into a coating system, and we asked it to do the same thing so that if you put that coating system, now it could be used in a variety of different ways. Okay. The innovation is a self-cleaning coating that when it's hit with any kind of natural grease, fat, or oil, olive oil or whatever, it will break down that oil into its component parts so that you no longer have an oil, you have all the component parts, so you can just simply wipe it away. So if it's on a restaurant countertop and you fry up a bunch of vegetables, and there's oil all over your countertop, you might go to sleep without cleaning your countertop, wake up in the morning, and it's no longer oily. Okay, that's the kind of functionality we're talking about. And the good thing about it, another good thing about it is, besides the fact that it works, is that it we use biomolecules that are naturally occurring. They're ubiquitous in your environment. They're all over you right now. And so they're non-toxic to humans and to the environment and everything. And so we can create functionality in paints and coatings to do things like self-clean or be antimicrobial or other things using naturally non-toxic biomolecules that you're around all the time.
That's incredible.
It
almost reminds me of kind of like the CRISPR technology, how like the genetics, how they're able to change genes and give them a different, I guess you could say, a different, complete different role to heal people. And this is kind of the same way, but for the environment. It's like you're
So what we
changing.
can do,
Yeah.
it's not just for the environment, it's for wherever you would put coatings. And like I was saying before about coatings, I'm sorry, I got distracted and I didn't finish my thought. Everything around you is coated, not just the walls. But if you look at like your tabletop, your book, your microphone, your glasses, your computer screen, every single thing that's man-made has a coating on it at some point in its manufacturing process. Now in the paint business, we look at that as functional surface area that we can use. And so that's what I'm talking about. So we functionalize different surface areas for different purposes, for different industries or applications. That self-cleaning application that I just mentioned could be used, like I said, in a kitchen, or it could be used, well, we've developed coatings for different purposes. We might change up the coating, and like you were saying about genetic manipulation, we can genetically manipulate different biomolecules, and we can create them ourselves. And that's the novelty of what we do. And also we work with paint. So we're the combination of biotechnology and materials science. Excuse me. And so, yeah, we manipulate paints in all sorts of ways to make them receptive to this biomolecule coming in and doing its thing, for a long period of time.
This is amazing.
Thanks.
And so then this would do its job, its role that it's meant to do after the quote unquote type of genetic manipulation for the entirety of the coating and the paint's life?
Yes, great question. Because we actually mix in these biomolecules and it's in the milieu of the coating. It's not like it's sprayed on top. Okay, there's different ways to make coating systems and stuff. And so it gets a lot more detailed than that. But yes, it's throughout the coating system. So as long as that coating, is good on a surface, then yes, it's active. That's what we have found in our labs.
I can see how this technology would be just incredible in the medical industry, and I mean NASA, I mean all around, everywhere.
You're touching on some of our biggest markets.
That's incredible. This is amazing. I've never heard this. It's it's blowing me away. So then,
can I tell you something about something that you just mentioned? Because it's
yes,
cool.
please.
Because you mentioned NASA. My husband, the scientist, the crazy hair on end, crazy science guy, is also a amateurish, like not astronaut, but he always had his head in the clouds. Okay, he likes finding life, and one of the biggest passions in his life would be to discover life on other planets. So he's always looked to Mars, and he's been involved in a lot of scientific organizations that do such things. Well, anyway, we have, like what I mentioned, one of our technologies is called Protocoat, and it's an antimicrobial technology. Now this one uses peptides. It's a peptide technology that we use, and we have a 53 million peptide library that we can pick out to target exactly whatever microbe that we need to. And it's a very robust technology. And so in merging these two passions, Steve has done a lot of innovating around like trying to find life on other planets. And one thing that is, well, for anyone that's going out in space for a long period of time, they're going to be in a container, and there's going to be microbes that gather, and you can't spray Lysol in those places that don't have a way to air it out. And so like that's where some of these coating systems could really come in handy, is like on a space station or something like that. And in addition, if we are to go with our robots and to Mars and go, creep around on the surface and everything. We don't want to bringing our microbes. And if we're looking for life, then we should go in completely non-contaminated, so that we get really reliable results. And so anyway, it's not the, the focus right now, what we're doing, but we've definitely done some technology in that area. And it's really in the space travel area. And it's really exciting. And I think it could be extremely useful.
Absolutely. This is just amazing. So you know what I'm thinking? So they have this paint technology, this coating technology has its own cleaning system, correct? Like it's got its own way of getting itself clean.
It self-cleans, yes.
Self-cleans.
Yeah, there are
What is the
different.
difference between self-clean and becoming sterile?
Oh, good question. So self-cleaning, actually in the case of our self-cleaning technology, what it does is it breaks down the components of the oil, and it creates a microscopic layer of soap on top of the surface. It actually does. You can't see it, okay? But it's clean as if you had put soap on it, okay? But there's a difference between soap and spraying your hands with Lysol or something like that, okay? So an antimicrobial is actually killing all of the bacteria, algae, molds, fungus, those kind of things on a surface. And so that's where your antimicrobial comes. And one thing we do is we actually combine these functionalities sometimes to get both functionalities. So we have, people in the labs, we're constantly doing those kind of experiments. But yeah, they are very they're very synergistic with each other, and but they're hitting two different things. One of them is hitting greases, fats, and oils, although it does leave a layer of soap, so that makes it cleaner too. And the other one is hitting microbes. And something exciting that we found out during the pandemic was that it's actually antiviral as well. And so we found out that it was effective against encapsulated viruses like COVID-19.
How would a technology like this in the long term, I mean, generations after generations, change humans' ability to fight different bacteria and viruses if we need certain bacteria and viruses present for us to? I mean, I've also heard that a lot of this is hypothetical. A lot of it's not even correct. But I'm just wondering if this has been explored as far as if too much is taken out of the incomplete environment, how strong will our immune system be?
Right. So I think what you might be referring to, and keep in mind, I'm not a scientist, so that's my disclaimer on this.
Yeah,
I'm a business development person, but I have a lot of scientific people that back me up and can speak better to that. But what you might be talking about is like antibiotic resistance.
Sure. Yes, exactly.
Okay. And that is a very, very big concern. There's only a couple handfuls of effective antibiotics. And yes, humanity is becoming more resistant to those. One good thing about, one of the really good things about our Protocoat technology is that the mode of action does not allow for antibiotic resistance. It actually pokes a hole in the cell. And so it works differently. Don't make me get too granular on that, but it does not allow for antibiotic resistance to occur. And we can test that using DNA testing and stuff.
That's incredible. So let's talk more about
nature. Working with nature is smart to do.
It really is, especially if you start to treat nature as it's intended to be treated.
Right.
And then we're all working synergistically. And that's where all the magic happens.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's talk more about climate change.
Okay.
So for those listening, tuning in for the first time, hearing the word climate change, I'm sure they've heard it interchangeably. They hear it all over the world. They hear it on the news. How could you explain what climate change is? And you said something before we started recording. You said global boiling. It's not global warming anymore. So let's talk a little bit about climate change, what it is, and why are we global boiling and not warming anymore?
Yeah. Okay, so climate change refers to long-term shifts in weather and temperature. And long-term is the key there, okay? We're not talking about daily shifts. There's still going to be snow in places, but it might be in the wrong places. But it's long-term shifts in weather and in temperature that affect, that affect global climate and generally raise the temperature. It's we know there's been shifts up and down in since the 1800s. We've seen natural shifts that go up and down in global temperatures, but we do know from empirical data that because of since the use of fossil fuels and since the Industrial Revolution, that these the emissions have caused global temperatures to rise at an exponential rate, and so they're just rising a lot more. And we're coming up to some big tipping points that we don't want to cross over. Okay, so believe it or not, that's where we're headed. There's no real legitimate argument that it's not happening. We need to face the music. I mean, we kind of have an asteroid heading towards Earth, and we need to do something about it. And so there are things to do, but we have to be serious about it. So we've got about 40 gigatons, and a gigaton is 1 billion tons of emissions that are being released through industrial, man-made industrial emissions per year. Now, I'll back up for a minute and explain that there's about 100 gigatons of emissions from natural sources on Earth. Okay, I mean, go back to like 8th grade biology. Okay, remember, trees and algae and those things respire, and that's when they release CO2 in the air. They also die later on, and they rot, and they release CO2 into the air. But during photosynthesis, they're pulling that CO2 down, and nature does it very well. They pull down, they capture a little bit more than they release each year. So everything is a natural, perfect system until we came along and kind of screwed it up. Yeah. Okay, so now we've been emitting all these 40 gigatons on top of the 100 gigatons that's naturally emitted, and that's where we need to focus. That's why we're seeing a lot of extreme weather events, and there will be a lot more impacts coming. For instance, once we go over the 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels, which we're at about 1.1 or 1.2, but because of new reports have indicated that because we are the way that our trajectory is going right now on emissions, that by 2027 we will actually, and because of oh gosh, what is the weather system that's happened? El Nino, sorry. And because of El Nino in the coming years, we're actually going to exceed 1.5 in about 2027. Now, good thing about that, we're going to come back down. But at 1.5, we start losing, like the coral reefs are dying, definitely. Okay. Yes. We could lose like the Great Barrier Reef. Okay. Just think about the impacts of that ecologically. So, and you quoted, actually the quote that you mentioned about global boiling was from the chief director, I'm probably getting his title wrong, of the UN, Antonio Guterres. He said, we're no longer in an era of global warming, we're in global boiling. So we're in it right now.
What does this mean for us, like within the next 20 years, if we don't take action? Speaking of taking action, when I think of global warming or global boiling, even, I get this feeling that there's no turning back. I mean, is there turning back? Is there a way for us to make a shift? It just almost sounds and it almost feels impossible. And,
I know.
And when I think this, like, what can your everyday Joe do to contribute to this, to make a difference? What can we really do?
I know. I hate being the doomsday woman. Podcasts and depresses everybody.
No.
There are things that we can do. It's going to take a collective effort. One person doing anything on their own, and even like, there are some things that we can do together, but it's going to take countries and corporations, and we have to drive that. Okay. And we have to demand it. And I mean, your kids, your grandkids, your legacy is at stake. And so we have to think for them, and we have to act on their behalf now, because there are things that we can do now, but they're going to be drastic. I mean, we have to take some drastic measures. Doesn't mean everyone needs to stop flying. It doesn't mean you're not going to eat your hamburgers anymore. Okay. And that's not the case. I'd like to take a moment just to explain like where our technology falls in this, and then it might give your audiences kind of an understanding of that some of the technologies that are out there available. So our technology, so there are things that reduce emissions. Okay. And so by 2050, according to the UN, all emissions in the world should go down by 50% in order to hit our mark. Okay. It's by 2050. And by 2030, we're supposed to hit at some point, you know, a lot more than we have. Okay. Unfortunately, our emissions have not gone down. Our emissions have gone up. During the pandemic, they went down for a while, but they jumped back up once everyone.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so there are emission reducing technologies. There's alternate energy. There's things that technologies that can be utilized to reduce the emissions that industrial, you know, the man-made emissions. We have a technology, our technology works in that space too. Excuse me. But our technology also works to just pull CO2 out from the air. And I don't think I've really explained the technology, but what it is in this case is not a biomolecule. It's not a portion of an organism. It is an organism. It's algae. And we place that into a coating and ask that algae to do what it does in nature, which is photosynthesize. And again, 8th grade biology, photosynthesis, pulling CO2 out of the air, along with the help of the sunlight and water, and through that process, making fruit to bear or whatever, cellulose, and emitting oxygen. Okay, so we want to take advantage of that. And algae on the surface of algae cover every surface on the whole earth is covered by microscopic algae. Okay, on the ocean it's like 200 meters deep, and it's called the photic zone, and there's algae everywhere. Okay, that's working. So algae is kind of the powerhouse of nature, of photosynthesis in nature, much better than trees. So 8 out of 10 breaths that you take right now came from the ocean, the algae in the ocean that photosynthesized. So they're doing the heavy lifting.
That's amazing.
And so we want to take that and we put that into a coating, and we learn how to stabilize it so that the coating actually captures CO2 and it holds it into the coating. Whereas you might say, well, yeah, but algae is already doing that, so why put it in a coating, right? Well, the coating does a number of things for us, but one thing that algae do in nature is they also die and start emitting CO2. Okay, so with paint we can capture it there, and then we can harvest it when we want and not let it emit anymore. Okay, we take control over the process. Then we can also amplify the surface area and just create a whole bunch of surface area to do the work of photosynthesis, which is what we've done. This is not a paint yet that would go on your exterior of your house. That's one that we'll develop later. But what we're doing now is just a paint that you put in a modular system, and those modules can be stacked up. They can be put out in a field. They can be put in your backyard. All they're going to do is photosynthesize, and we're going to have a whole bunch of painted surface area in them to do that work. And so what can your audience do is, when these become available, I would suggest, just like solar panels or something like that, get these for your house. Okay, you can start taking care of your own carbon footprint, and we intend to commercialize that embodiment soon. Okay, right now we're coming out with our pilot plant. We're coming out of the lab. We've been developing the coating for 5 years. We've had this coating, it works great. We're engineering the whole solution around it, the whole embodiment, the modular system and everything, so that it can be max efficiency is where we're at now. But these will ultimately be available for you to have. And, every skyscraper that is built, they should have, 6 or 8 stories of these modules on top of it, because they can go kind of anywhere, and do that work.
And so let's say, decades down, this technology takes off globally, how would this help our planet and our species?
Right. So we need to start. So, like I was talking about, there's the emission reduction technologies, and then there are carbon removal technologies. So, if we can actually pull this carbon dioxide out, then we can speed the whole process along, and it keeps us from, getting into, like, if you think, I live in Austin, Texas, okay, we haven't seen temperatures below 102 in 60 days. Okay,
Oof.
we haven't had hardly any rain this whole summer. And I grew up here, it wasn't this hot. It just wasn't, in my lifetime. And, it's the temperatures have gone up significantly. And, I again, I'm the doomsday, damsel, but, I'm always like, well, just keep in mind, if it's hot here, just remember, this is the coolest summer you'll ever have.
Oh
It's
my
kind of that,
God.
yeah. That's kind of what they say. They say we're like boiling frogs. Do you know about that analogy?
No, I don't.
Okay, they say, I don't even know if this is really true because I've never actually boiled a frog. They say that if a frog is put in water that's not boiling and you just turn the temperature up to boiling, the frog will never know to get out.
Whoa.
And so that's kind of where we are. So we're in it.
That's incredible. That's amazing. This is all incredible. So what about other little things that humanity can? What about like recycling or like changing to an electric car? Are all these things gonna help? I mean, are these tiny little things help at all? Or is it just kind of, are these steps way too baby steps?
Well, you want to keep on doing those things. Okay. I mean, they're going to help a little bit, but they're not going to solve the crisis. Okay. We
Mm.
really need carbon removal technologies. And I'll tell you something else. The
Yeah.
hopeful thing is there are some that are out there.
Yeah.
The problem with it is they need to get, we need to get behind these technologies to do the work, because we have 40 gigatons to pull down to capture of CO2. And I'll tell you, the technology that's the furthest along commercially is one called Climeworks. And they've got about 600 million in funding, and they've been around a while. They're a different technology than ours. They're carbon removal technology. They've been around for I don't know, 5-10 years. They're pulling down 4,000 tons right now, and that's the furthest that we are along. So we have a long way to go,
Oh
and
yeah.
we have to. And the UN has said reducing emissions is not enough. We have to use carbon removal technologies. So to get down to it, what your audience can do, I always tell people you can make your desires known about this, and make them known to your lawmakers, make them known to your corporations.
Mm.
And I used to teach this in schools. I used to teach advocacy, and I called it my "How to Stick It to the Man" class. And we would call our lawmakers or go in and visit our lawmakers, and we would put together our arguments and try to get a law changed, or instated or something like that. And it's easy to do. That's my point, is you can pick up the phone, your lawmaker, if you're in, you want to call your lawmaker in your district. And if you're in your district and you call them up and you say, I'm a constituent in your district, and I want you to know that I feel like we should support carbon removal technologies. They're important for the environment. And they have to, if that's all you said, then they have to count that. They have to, they actually tally things in these offices, because they want to know how to get reelected. So they want to know what their constituents are thinking. If they know that you think that and you're in their district, then there's probably, they have some formula for saying, well, there must be 4,000 other people that think that way, or something like that. So it counts, is my point. It really does count. And you don't have to be smart at it or know anything about it. If you just, you can just say that.
What about getting other big names involved, like Elon Musk or even Leonardo DiCaprio? I know he would love this stuff. He probably already knows about your technology, right?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him lately. Um, but Elon is involved. So Elon
Oh,
Musk,
good.
actually, also an Austin resident.
Whoa.
He started, do you know about the X Prize? Do you
I
know what
don't.
Okay,
No.
so an X Prize, there's a whole bunch of X Prizes, and X Prize is a global competition. It's an innovation driven competition to solve like existential type problems, like food scarcity or water cleanliness or those kind of things. Okay, and so Elon actually he sponsored an X Prize for carbon removal technology. It's the biggest prize ever awarded. It's going to come out. The winner is going to be announced in April of 2025 on Earth Day. We are qualified competitors in that
Yes.
contest. It's the biggest prize ever given in history. It's $100 million prize purse.
That's
And so,
incredible. Good
yeah,
luck. I wish you
so
the
important.
best for sure.
Thank you. We're Team Lichen, is what it is.
That's exciting.
Thank you. And that's because our technology is fashioned after lichen. Actually, the paint is like lichen.
This is really amazing stuff, Beth. This is out of this world. I never, and when I first started talking to you before we started recording, I had no idea in the direction this was going to go. And it's just mind blowing. It really is.
Oh, good.
I have a question for you.
Blow
Being a
people's
female executive in the
minds.
science and tech space, like what advice do you have for young women considering a similar path? Because this is incredible. It seems like it might be more male dominated. Am I wrong in assuming that?
Our company is about 50-50. Our chief
Okay.
scientific officer is a female. And so we have a lot of females in our labs. And I'm not a scientist. And I would say, go with your passion. I don't think it should be a barrier. I've probably been discriminated, a lot. Maybe I just haven't noticed it so much and just stuck to what I was trying to do because, if they're, you know, if they're discriminating in that way, then, I don't really care about them anyway. But I don't have any great advice except follow your passion and it will shine through. People will see it.
Awesome. Great. Beth McDaniel, everybody, on A Little Less Fear podcast. Where can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find more information on this paint and coatings and all the incredible topics that we just discussed right now?
Yeah, they can look on our website,
Okay.
reactivesurfaces.com. So surface like the table, not service. And reactivesurfaces.com. If you go to the technology page, you'll see all of our different platform technologies, including carbon capture coatings, which I told you those are the ones that are like lichen. And you can find a lot of information on those and on our blog page and LinkedIn. My LinkedIn, you can put that on there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Beth McDaniel, everybody, www.reactivesurfaces.com. Thanks so much for sharing all of this incredible, fascinating information. There's just so much to think about. And I'm just really I'm inspired by this technology. It's like, what else is the future going to have in store for us all around to just help us to save humanity and to save our planet and for us to be working together and not against each other. And that's really what we're trying to do here, just to keep surviving. It's really amazing.
Yes, and thank you for all you're doing. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.